All right. Welcome everybody to the Grafana Agent Community Call. It is July the 20th. Yeah, so we'll take a look at the topics and just work through them. If anyone has any thing that they would like to ask or jump in or have any conversation about, feel free to either bring it up, either by talking about it, typing in the chat, or any other means that you would like to. The first topic we have is to address if anyone has any feedback or an issue with, or just want to talk about some feature or issue or really anything. I'll give a minute here. All right. And we'll jump into an update on Grafana Agent Flow. I'll give just a little bit of flavor around that. Grafana Agent Flow is something we're experimenting and looking into making a new type of configuration that focuses more on component, kind of like Legos that you connect together to create a workflow of how metrics or logs or anything else eventually will flow through the system. It's currently in a highly experimental mode, and will definitely be something we're soliciting a lot of feedback from the community. There are several RFCs out there, and we're just bringing it up. You can look at previous community calls to see some other presentations that we've done about it, and everyone's free to jump in the community agent Slack channel and bring it up at any time, and we'd be more than happy to talk about it. I will turn it over to Robert to talk a little about the timeline of Flow.
So we've talked about Flow a few times in the community calls, and I think I've tried to make it really clear that Flow is something that we're being really ambitious over, and given the level of ambition, we want a lot of room to recognize if what we were trying was bad. So like really the plan is to release something completely opt-in, completely experimental, that we want to collect feedback from users from, and over time iterate on it and slowly work towards the decision point of should this replace the current agent. And at any point during this process, we're going to allow ourselves to say, this is bad, this isn't good, and just backpedal all the way back to like what we have today and keep it there. So I opened a proposal kind of talking about generally the overall plan of assuming Flow is like well received and everyone loves it. What is the path towards that being like the sole one way to configure the agent? And I will now share my screen as soon as I find the issue. Okay, share tab. So most of this issue is actually talking about how people interact with Flow. We can ignore that and just go straight to the timeline. So step one, we're currently thinking that the next stable release, 0.27, will have Flow as an experimental feature. Then we are giving ourselves 4 releases to collect feedback and iterate as much as we can. This might change, but I think 4 releases, 4 months is a pretty good kind of timeline to get a better understanding of if people like this or not. Then after that, 2 releases after that, after it's stable, we'll kind of deprecate the existing mode if that's what we decide to do, and then have Flow be the default. And by the way, I kind of skipped over it. Once Flow becomes stable, we ship it with migration tooling to allow you to change from the current agent config into the Flow configs. So by the time Flow becomes the default, you already should have migrated, but if you hadn't, the tooling is still there to easily migrate with the deprecated stuff, or from the deprecated things towards Flow. Then after it's deprecated, it follows the normal deprecation schedule of 2 releases of deprecation, then removal. So after that, in 0.35, that would be the time frame we would say, okay, Flow is the only thing now, and the existing mode is gone. Also probably means we remove the migration tooling. Maybe that sticks around for a little bit longer. We don't know. I also think that 35 minor releases every 6-ish weeks probably is a good indicator that we're ready for 1.0. That's a separate discussion. I'm personally looking out for when we do the 1.0 release, but this is the timeline. I think this gives us a lot of time to collect feedback and a lot of time to understand if people like what we're doing. So I'm hoping that by the 27 release, we start getting feedback and have confidence a lot earlier than having to wait until December. Matt?
Guess I'll miss that. Yeah. Do we know what kind of criteria we will think or that we will feel for graduation?
Yeah. Sure. So I personally, I would say that like Flow needs to perform as well or better than the agent does today. Like you shouldn't need to throw like double the amount of machines to run at this for it to become stable. I'm also going to want to say that like no, I'm not expecting anything we ever do to be universally loved by all, right? But I think we're going to pay attention to like what is the percentage of negative feedback versus positive feedback, and that would be another indicator of like, is this something we want to continue forward and market as a stable thing, or if something we want to back away from? So yeah, I think performance, functionality, like it should be 1-to-1 equivalent with the agent. By the time it's stable, like Flow should do at least what the agent does, if not more. When I say the agent, it's still the agent, but Flow is like a different mode. So the Flow mode should be functionality equivalent, if not having more functionality compared to the current agent, the static mode as we're calling it. Functionality, performance, and generally positive reception. A good positive to negative ratio would be kind of the 3 factors I'm paying attention to.
Awesome, thank you. Other questions on Flow or the timeline? All right. Next on the topic is a little bit about River. Robert?
Oh, I was thinking you were gonna get that one. Okay.
Oh, I can give you the flavor of it, and
Go
then
for
you
it.
can go to the depth. So River is a programming language we are working on that is HCL-like, that will be how you configure the primary interface into the Flow. And it is meant to be an expression-based system where you configure components and link them together via expressions. And there's quite a few reasons we're looking at implementing our own language. There is a RFC on River that I will link in the document that connects to it and goes over some of the concepts. And we are drip feeding the River components. That's an overused term. The River building blocks into the main. So there are things that you can go ahead and look now and see the various tests that show how to use River. And there's a lot of reasons in the RFC of why we're looking at our own language. There's features and capabilities that we want to be able to do. And I know there was a lot of, we're currently using HCL in our examples currently, but there are a lot of things that Robert had to fork and change to get River to use, or get HCL to do the things we want to do for Flow. So we're heavily investigating, pushing the new language River that does these things natively and gives us a lot more in terms of error handling, handling of Go values, and marshalling, converting. Marshalling might be the wrong term, back and forth between the items. Robert, you want to jump into anything and clarify?
Yeah. I want to be really clear that like we're not building a new language because we want to. It really is like a last resort type of thing where we tried HCL, and I really do like the syntax of HCL, but I found that for Flow, where it's kind of an expression-based language, which is always being evaluated at runtime, like over and over and over again, we have strong performance needs, and also we're doing a lot of things with HCL that HashiCorp definitely never intended. So we're relying on being able to pass around like Go interfaces so that users can manually wire together pipelines in ways that you really wouldn't kind of do with any other kind of agent. So those two things combined try to make us look at whether or not it's tenable long term to continue using HCL. And if there was anything that we really wanted in HCL that we don't have today, like passing around functions as values, you can't do that in HCL. So that led to River. The RFC, I honestly, very little of the RFC is proposing what the language is. It's more about why we need a new language, why not just use YAML, why not just use an existing one. And I think we've generally justified it enough. The syntax isn't literally HCL because we don't want to be confused with HCL. We want to make sure that when people like are reading River code, they understand it's River and they understand what that means. But there's nothing really wrong with the HCL syntax either. So we've changed just a little bit to make it like to be able to make it more identifiable, but we're not trying to just rewrite all the syntax because HCL is mostly fine.
Awesome.
Oh, right. And then part of having a new language is part of like the concern of like, will people like react poorly to flow and stuff? So it's all feeding into that. We want feedback. I personally believe as long as the language you are using is very copy and pasteable and users can tweak things really easily to their needs, the syntax will be picked up very quickly. And I think River and both HCL kind of accomplish that copy and pasteability. So we'll see how it goes.
Does anybody have anything regarding that or any other topic they'd like to discuss? All right. If no one has anything else, that's all of the topics we have on the schedule. So we can give everybody back some of the time today then. Appreciate everybody showing up. And we
Thanks,
will
Matt.
catch you in next month.
Bye.